it's a special day in Pittsburgh when we get to recognize somebody who has helped to define what this city is. And not just to ourselves, but the work that he has done has certainly helped us to understand the architectural history that this city is blessed with, but to the entire world. And the understanding of the commitments that people made 150, 200, or 100 years ago to a history that we have now and that we pass down to future generations. The city is extraordinary. Even during the difficult times and the bad times, we realized there was something special about this city. Even though economically we may have struggled, we could see it around us. And now as the economy picks back up and we start polishing off these gems in every one of our neighborhoods and all throughout southwestern Pennsylvania, the rest of the world can see how special this is as well. I take great pride when I bring people in from the West Coast and they sit in this office and they just look around and they say, there's not many places like this in California. And then I have them look out my window and stare down Grant Street, not only at the county courthouse, but the buildings that Henry Clay Frick had built 100 years ago. And they see the architecture and they're like, it feels like I'm in Europe. And they're taken to a different place of what this city is. And, you know, for a lot of us that did not get to study architecture or architectural history except for one class with Drew Armstrong, you've made it available to us to be able to see it, understand it, and present it in such a way that it can be appreciated. And the work that you've done throughout a lifetime has given that not only to Pittsburghers today, but Pittsburghers tomorrow. Whereas, for over 4 decades, Franklin K. Toker has pursued understanding education and discovery in the realm of the history of architecture. He has taught and inspired generations of students and the public, and is Distinguished Professor of History of Art and Architecture at the University of Pittsburgh. And whereas Franklin K. Toker's research into the architecture and archaeology of churches and cathedrals in Montreal and Renaissance Italy has revolutionized understanding of celebrated structures in the history of art. And whereas through his published works on architecture in Pittsburgh and Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water, Franklin K. Toker established Western Pennsylvania as eminent in the history of American architecture and urbanism. And whereas throughout his career, Franklin K. Toker has been honored with prestigious fellowships and awards, and he has served as president of the Society of Architectural Historians. And whereas Franklin K. Toker and his wife Ellen have been married for 46 years, they delight in their 3 children, Sarah, Jeffrey, and Mackie, and their 6 grandchildren. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, William Peduto, Mayor of the City of Pittsburgh, in gratitude for his contributions to the field of architectural history and the study and appreciation of Pittsburgh architecture, do hereby declare September 28th, 2018, Franklin K. Toker Day, here in our most livable city of Pittsburgh. Professor?
Mayor Peduto, an honored guest, thank you for those superb introductory remarks. And it's not quite the beginning of the academic year, but the old academic year, 2017-18, has departed, and the new academic year, 2018-19, has begun. In the background to this manifestation of academic life is another great anniversary. It was about 350 years ago that British soldiers overran the still smoldering ruins near here, which guaranteed that the continent of North America would ultimately belong neither to the French nor to the Spanish, but to England. What have those long ago military victories and defeats do with us today? One could argue that the takeover of this district by the Redcoats eventually led to the great British achievements of democracy and meritocracy that were transferred from military to civilian life. Eventually, frontier life then gave way to modern civilization. How is that old history meaningful to us on this celebratory day? Fort Pitt was ground zero for civilization on this continent. We consequently also celebrate the transfer of British liberal values from Europe to America. After all, Tsarist Russia and Imperial France and Spain sought to implant their despotic regimes from Europe to this new country as well. Did the Scots-Irish coming to this land understand their momentous achievements as they laid the foundations for a new civilization? Probably not. Yet surely they saw that some kind of new and democratic civilization would emerge from these rough beginnings. So we have much more to celebrate today than the transfer of British universities to America. We celebrate the freedom of academic life here, the foundations of scientific life, and the strengthening of ethical life as all three moved from Britain to the American colonies. We can include Andrew Carnegie among these new beginnings too. He raised the teaching of trades from an apprenticeship level to a group of subjects that included the humanities. So the establishment of the University of Pittsburgh, and let us say also Carnegie Mellon, brought with it momentous advances in both technology and the arts. Hence, Gaudeamus, let us celebrate, as the old expression has it. Pittsburgh saw not merely the transfer of civilization, but the establishment of technology to sustain it. We have so much to celebrate today, not least the governance of Pittsburgh, which has chosen to make the humanities one more link in this great academic chain that stretches from Carnegie in the 18th century ultimately back to Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. For what good is advanced technology without a serious evaluation on how best to use it? I'm done. Oh my goodness.
Thank you so much, Mayor Peduto. I'm so grateful to be here today to see Frank receive this wonderful proclamation. 44 years ago, Frank and I arrived in Pittsburgh. Before too long, we realized what an unusual city this was. Frank couldn't wait to see more and more of its wonders. By 1980 or so, he wanted to write about our city. This interest led to his first book about Pittsburgh, which came out in 1985, and later led to a second edition, published in 2009. His devotion to the city did not end there. Frank spent many years writing his book, Falling Water Rising, along with two others about the area in and around Pittsburgh. In addition, Frank taught a course on Pittsburgh many times at the University of Pittsburgh and lectured on Pittsburgh both here and in other parts of the country. Many of Frank's students were not aware of the riches to behold until they took his course. Each time he taught this course on Pittsburgh, he took his students on bus tours and walking tours to help them really see Pittsburgh and its environs. Most of this would not have been possible without his teaching, first for 6 years at Carnegie Mellon University, and then for 38 years at the University of Pittsburgh. His time on the faculty of the Frick Fine Arts Department at Pitt is one accomplishment he is very proud of. Such a congenial atmosphere, such learned colleagues, such sharing of ideas throughout the years, and such support for him. This was truly an ideal academic environment. Now Frank is an emeritus faculty member with the title of Distinguished Professor. These honors would not have come to him without the help of his marvelous colleagues. On a personal note, I would like to add that Frank is deserving of this proclamation because of his tremendous work ethic, which made him work hours and hours at writing, at driving around Pittsburgh, going to Falling Water numerous times. At home, he usually disappeared in the evenings and on weekends and on vacations and summers to his home office to work without cease. With his computer, his books, and his telephone at Frick, he would work many times late into the night. It would be wrong for me to leave out his dedication to his students. Just yesterday, I met a woman I did not know. When she heard my name, she told me that some years ago, Frank took her son under his wing, and with Frank's encouragement, set this student on a path for his future career. Frank has received many letters and emails from former students who told him that he opened their eyes to the built environment. Students who traveled around the world told him that they were so excited to see famous buildings in real life because Frank had given them such a marvelous preparation for the experience. Frank devoted much time to class preparation. To my knowledge, he never repeated a lecture twice. Never. I lost my place, of course. Wait a minute. Where am I? Right. Never, right. Even though he might have taught the course many times, he strove to make his classes interesting and pertinent. As I think most of you know, Frank's breadth of interest ranges from early Christian archaeology to Gothic architecture, to modern architecture, to Thomas Jefferson's architecture, and to his home city of Montreal, to his adopted city of Pittsburgh, and his beloved Florence, Italy. He has written and taught on all of these subjects and more. We never travel anywhere where Frank doesn't want to seek out a building that he has read about and wants to visit. This includes gas stations and a variety of other places. He loves to travel because of his love of cities, painting, sculpture, architecture, and the urban landscape. Thank you all in attendance today. We are very, very happy that our son Jeffrey and our daughter-in-law Tara, Jeffrey's here with the bow tie and the white shirt, and Tara's to his right. They were very wonderful to come. They live here. Unfortunately, our two other children are far away out of town and we're not able to be here, but they're here in spirit. We spoke to them both today. My sister Susan and her husband Chad. Susie, raise your hand. That's my sister. She's my older sister, Susan. That's just a joke. And her husband, Chad, is over here taking photographs. They also flew in. They got here exactly 10 minutes ago. So they had a late flight, so they were just made it. We were so happy they were able to attend all the way from Vermont. To our marvelous friends and Frank's colleagues, who are also our friends, we thank you for coming this afternoon and for all the years of support and loyalty and love you have shown to Frank. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I didn't know that I was going to have a chance to speak, and I'm really, really glad that I do, because, you know, there's so many things that I could say about Frank and his impact on the university, and certainly on decades of students who've gone on. And everything that the mayor said and that Ellen has said, you know, the profound influence that he's had on people would be impossible to quantify. And I'm fond of telling this story, so I'm going to tell it again. And that's when I first came to Pittsburgh, the University of Pittsburgh, to work. My aunt, who was a politician in Harrisburg, she was a judge on the Commonwealth Court. She was really excited that I was coming to teach here, and you know, I thought, oh great, she's happy that I actually have a job. And no, that she wasn't really terribly interested in that whole question. But she said, you're going to be working with Frank Toker. And she was so excited about this because she loved your book. She grew up in Pittsburgh. She at the corner of Walnut and Shady was
Do you
where
want
she
to
lived.
identify her exact?
Her name's Genevieve Blatt.
Right.
And she was absolutely thrilled with your book and made a point of telling me that she had bought several cases of your book to distribute around Harrisburg. So, your book was spread far and wide thanks to her. And she actually deigned to give me a copy of it, just to impress on me how important this was. So my estimation, or her estimation of me, rose exponentially because of you. So my debt to you goes way back. I have had such a good time working with Frank. He was always very gracious and welcoming to me every day. He would, when I became chair, he referred to me as Madam Chair, which I thought was very charming. Yeah, so we've had a very nice working relationship with Frank. Everybody would say the same in the department. He's just a wonderful presence. So we are very, very happy to be able to celebrate you in this way. And I have to say that the request for the proclamation came from this man. So, he was very intent on celebrating you as part of one of the treasures of the city. So, cheers to you.